Welcome to the Driven Moms Answering Adversity interview series, stories of success through setbacks from Mom Elevated. Together, we can shine a light on how normal challenges and struggles are, along with how we can overcome and rise above them. Today, we have Jenn with us to share her story. I can't wait to get into this one. So can you briefly tell us about your story and who
Yeah,
you?
sure. Absolutely. So, if we go back to like the very, very beginning of the business, I worked full time as a transportation broker. I just went on maternity leave when I didn't quite get treated the way I wanted to. So I was like, let's do something different. So I started a virtual assistant business with a 6 week old and then went back to corporate for 6 months, quit that job. High five
Yes.
and and then went full time and managed having a business with I had my son home with me most of the time until he was 2, I think it was. Yeah, 2. Um did virtual assistants for that entire time, then moved into an agency model at the like end of 2019. My son started going to a Montessori school. He was in, more care. I had more time. The agency slowly started picking up. I was so excited. Went to a conference in January of 2020, met a bunch of incredible photographers. The business started picking up more. And then March 2020 happened. And within 60 days, 60 to 90 days, I lost 80% of my business. I went from like making more than I was in corporate to making less than I was in corporate. And my son was home full time for the first time since I had him. And it was honestly probably, and I know I'm not alone in this boat, but like one of the worst 6 months of my life.
Yeah.
So uh did that, worked through it. By October of 2020, the agency started coming alive again. I was very kind of on the fence of, do I stay with photographers? Do I not stay with photographers? That sort of thing. Answered my own question. Our clients came back. We got new clients. They started getting busier because of all of the push back from 2020 happening. 2021 was going to be an insane year, was an insane year for photography. So the agency grew and we ended up having our best month in business January 21 and haven't really slowed down much since. So that's
Amazing.
the like capsulated version.
That's the in a nutshell.
Yes. Yes.
Long story short, I love that. Oh my gosh. Wow. I can't even. That's so crazy, especially in the photographer world. I could see how that would have been a really big hit with,
Yeah.
6 feet, all of the things. Like, that's just so crazy. So through that, because that's quite a bit of adversity all in one little lump, how would you
Mhm.
say you answered that and dealt with that? Because really, it's not just even answering it, it's how did you allow yourself to wait that out to see if it would pick back up or if it would be something that you needed to move on from or just transition in a different way or shift it? How did you mentally go through all of that and not go crazy?
Oh, gosh. I don't know that I managed not to go crazy. I'm sure my husband would have some notes on that. But I would say, one, because I was home full time with our son, I didn't have a lot of choice to like go out and look for work. Because my husband's schedule is it varies it doesn't vary a lot. It's a weird schedule.
Yeah.
He's only home 2 days a week, 1 week, and then he's home only home 2 days a week out of 7 1 week, and then the next week he only works 2 days a week. So it's just a very weird schedule to work with.
Yeah.
And he was working full time in a side business. So to say he was not available is putting it mildly. So one, I didn't have much of an option. Two, I had the incredible support system of my cousin, which is odd. I didn't see her. She lives in North Carolina. I live in Kentucky. I didn't see her very often, but I escaped to her house twice in that 6 month time span with our son. And it really gave me the week away from like our home and like that isolation that kind of got me through the really, really dark weeks. And then the first thing I did once money started coming back in, once we were kind of finding our feet again, is I hired a therapist in October. And I still work with her. I don't know if I'll ever let her go. she
Okay.
she there were so many things in my life personally that went on in that summer. My husband and I were not in a good place. I felt very unheard, super abandoned, very isolated. It's got dark fast. Sorry, guys. So I knew that if I was going to grow my business and I was going to give my team everything that they needed, that I had to work out some personal kinks. And like I would say the next 6 to 9 months after I hired the therapist were easier on a personal level because my husband and I started talking. We started working through things. The business was working through things. We were structuring things really well. But emotionally, we were digging into things that like they were really, really tough.
Yeah.
And unknotting, it was almost like cutting open scar tissue to remove it, and all of that pain and angst and trauma, like you have to work it out in order to for the muscle or the joint to work properly again.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that for the first 9 months of therapy. So I would say having my cousin to like talk to every day, check in with, and really kind of lean on her, and being able to visit a couple times in that 6 month frame, plus hiring the therapist. Those were the two big things that like got me through that period.
I know that that can be like a huge hurdle for some people to like say, I'm gonna hire, because I have a lot of friends that have gone through similar situations where it's like it's culminated to the point where they're like, I just have to get help. There's no other
Yeah.
choice. And I think it's beautiful to see them admit that and go through with it because like you said, it's painful. You're cutting that open. You have to deal with that. You know you're gonna have to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
But it can be a really hard thing for a lot of people to really take that leap and jump. And also I love that this is like a conversation that is much more open now, that
Yeah.
people are much more open to hearing about it because I think it is so important. Um, I personally, my father struggled with a lot of this, and he had two suicide attempts. He's still around. He's great. He's sober. He's gotten through all of that. But like seeing that firsthand, I feel like that would have been tremendously helpful to him. But he comes from like the old cowboy way, and
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't a thing. So how was that leap from this is really dark, this is a lot, I'm not feeling heard, but I don't want to like, there's nothing extreme that I want to do. I still love him. I know this is a thing. How was that into I'm gonna go work on myself? Because that's really what therapy is admitting. I'm gonna go work
Oh,
on
yeah,
myself.
100%, right? Um, okay, so okay, so we're gonna get like real personal for a minute. So when I was a teenager, I found out that my mom was having an affair. And I was part of hiding it from my dad for years. And because of circumstances in their life that I knew way too much about, I I was okay with her having the affair because the person she was seeing was a safe place for her, where at the time my dad wasn't.
Mhm.
And even at 15 and 16 years old, I knew that.
Yeah.
But it's not what I wanted for my marriage. And it's not the cycle that I wanted to continue. And when my husband and I were in this really not great place, I wasn't going out and looking for anything, but it was very much I was disconnected from him. And I was just like, what is the point? What is the point in staying? What is the point in trying to have this relationship? What is the point in staying in this marriage? And when he is not listening, because I was communicating, I was saying, I'm drowning, literally standing here drowning. You have the life raft. Like, can you just toss it to me?
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't want to look for somebody else for a life raft. Um, so I went into the therapy and I laid it all out on the table for her. I was like, look, this is what happened in childhood. This is the trauma. This is where I'm at. I don't want to do this. Fix it. You know, and I didn't think of turning anywhere else to work through that than in therapy. So that's kind of like where I wanted to go.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think that's a wonderful little and to recognize that. Do you think it helped that you were 15 or 16 when that happened, so you had a little bit more of an understanding as opposed to like internalizing? I mean, I feel like younger children, you just learn you're resilient.
Yeah.
You don't realize that that's now ingrained in you, whereas at 15,
Right.
16, you kind of had that mentality already where you're like, oh, I have this understanding. And so you recognized that before it became the
It
cycle.
became
I'm
an
proud of
issue.
you. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh
Yeah.
my
I
gosh.
think I mean it ended up blowing up in her face. Um 5 or 6 years later. And I mean, and I say like my mom is my best friend. I love her to pieces. Um, again, knew way too much about that marriage, but they worked through it. And my parents stayed together. They were the happiest that I had ever seen them in the last 2 years that they had, prior to my dad passing. And it's, you know, seeing a marriage, seeing them go through that experience. And like my mom worked at the church. My dad was, you know, heavily involved in the church. You know, and seeing them have to navigate those waters just in and of itself, like I don't want to, and I didn't want to do to my son what was done to me. So like those two things, like knowing how you're not gonna get away with it. You know, it's eventually gonna come out. So can we just skip that part and just not, you know? So I think it helped a lot to see it so intimately, even though I hate that I did, but like to know it as intimately as I did helped me recognize like I don't really want to do that.
And how do you think that translated into your business? Because I feel like there are some parallels in how, I mean, you had this really dark spot in your business too. And
Mhm.
so how do you think that translated with that experience into your entrepreneurial journey?
So it's interesting because as I worked through these different boxes that like I thought I had boxed up and like put in the back of my mind, I'm working through them. And one of the two biggest themes that we focus in my therapy a lot of the times is safety and trust. I didn't trust myself. My therapist cracks me up. She's like, you talk about cheating like you're gonna walk outside one day and just fall on one. I'm just like, you're not wrong. I'm petrified of this. And she's like, that's not how it works. And you know, so we had to work on trusting myself. And because I wouldn't talk to men if like they were in a coffee shop next to me.
Oh, wow.
Like I was terrified of stepping out of this box that I had put myself in. And so learning to trust myself and like I can smile at somebody and like it's not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but trusting myself in, you know, in those simple things that someone like you don't think about that kind of stuff. But for me, it was like this huge, terrifying thing. And trusting myself that, like, I can trust my choices, I can trust my instincts, I can trust who I am as a person, the wife I want to be, the mom I want to be. Taking that and then trusting my decisions in my business, trusting who I hire, trusting how we structure the business, who we work with, it all ended up correlating so well that, like, a year into therapy, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I have the business that I wanted 2 years ago. Like, I have a team that I trust. And I trust myself to make the decisions to run the business in a way that's going to fit it best. And it was really cool.
That's whew. And to know that it's something that you didn't realize or that you probably wouldn't have
Oh,
ever
yeah.
seen otherwise, that you were just blind to it 100%.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, that speaks volumes because there is, I mean, you do just get into your routine and it's a comfort thing and you're
Yeah.
just like, well, this is my day. And you don't ever question it. You just go about your motions. But
Yeah.
when somebody brings it to your attention, then you have to be more self-aware and you have to really think about it and be like, well, why? That's a, I don't, why am I doing that? That's a great question. I love that.
Yeah.
On the same kind of level, what do you think it is about entrepreneurs that makes us continue on through those types of challenges without giving up when times are tough or when we know we need to grow and learn more about ourselves and really test those boxes and test those boundaries? What is it about us that does that?
Oh my gosh. I think one of the key elements of a successful entrepreneur is we don't quit. Like, we don't take no for an answer. We don't quit. We have this incredible perseverance to make things happen. Like, I just wrote a social media post a couple days ago and I was like, hey, how many times have you failed lately? And it's one of those things like, okay, but did you change how you did it? Did you study harder? Did you change your approach? Did you figure out a way to prevent it from happening again? Like, you didn't fail, you just learned a way that didn't work. So you have to figure, like, I think that's what makes entrepreneurs so cool. Um we just figure out ways to make things work in the way we want them to work. We don't take a failure personally. We don't take a failure and like, oh, okay, we're done. We're terrible at what we do. We can't ever do it again. We just fix it and
Yeah.
then we do it again
And again and again and again.
and again, again, and again, and again.
Right. Glutton for punishment. Oh,
Yes,
that's so funny.
absolutely. Yes.
That's amazing. No, I think that's beautiful. I like the you just make it work. You make
Yeah.
it happen. I love that.
And
That's
not to say that we don't have bad days or we don't have days where the imposter syndrome gets us, the anxiety gets us. My goodness, I can't tell you how many days, as especially as an early business owner, that my anxiety was so high I could hardly function. Like, I'm sitting at my laptop, I'm like, my business is going to burn to the ground, my clients hate me, everyone hates me, they're never going to work with me again. They're going to tell their friends never to work with me, and my business is going to go away and it's going to be dust. I'm sitting here like, why are you like this?
right, right. Or
So we have those.
the
Yes.
first time you get negative feedback and you're like, what did I do? What did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How can I fix this and change this? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not always the case.
Right.
Cool it,
Yes.
brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, recognizing you can have bad days and whether you need to take a break or step away from work for that day and tackle it when you're in a better headspace, those recognitions and those habits will make a huge difference in your business.
That's so true. 100%. So, specifically from your experience that we've been talking about today, what takeaway or lesson do you think other mompreneurs would be able to use?
Like, get help. Like, regardless, I'm not saying like you have to go hire a therapist, although huge advocate for it, obviously. But like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I feel like the next generation is better about this, but I feel like especially elder millennials, we have this mentality of like, we have to do it, we have to do it right, nobody else can help us, this is the way it has to be done, and like, nobody touch it. Like,
Yes.
give up some control in something that feels okay. Doesn't need to feel good, but like feels okay, whether that's like house cleaning, meal prepping, you know, getting childcare. A perfect example. I'm sitting here with my therapist and I was telling her, I'm like, I hate having to balance mom and work simultaneously. And she's like, well, isn't your son in childcare? I said, yes. And she's like, so why are you working when you have him? I'm like, because I have to get him at 3 and I'm still working until 5. And she's like, why? And she gave me the permission that I needed to let him stay in aftercare a couple days a week until 4 or 4:30, so that when I'm with him, I'm with him. You know, so looking at your life from a perspective of this isn't working, what are the things I need to do to make it work? And for me, it was hiring a therapist. It was having conversations with my husband where I was like, listen, buddy, this
Oh,
isn't working. And if you want us to continue, like if you want us to work again and still work and stay here, these things need to change. You know, so having those tough conversations with the people in your life that matter, that can help you figure out how to run your life better, is going to be a huge, huge difference.
yes, 100%. I love that. That's also huge advocate for asking for help in any capacity, as
Any
little or as
capacity.
big as it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because it does make such a difference.
Yeah.
Um, what is the best way for others to find you if they'd like to work with you or learn more about you and chat and get to know you?
I hang out on Instagram most often. I have Jenn.Bays. That's my coaching Instagram. That's where I hang out a lot. If you want to see what the business, the agency is up to, that is Success Beyond the Lens. And a lot of my team runs it now. And they're phenomenal. Their reels are so much funnier than mine ever were.
I love that you can admit that too. You're like,
Oh,
"Mm,
100%.
no, this is definitely their forte." And I
Yeah,
love the
they're so
name,
good.
Success Behind the Lines. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I ended up landing on that name through Natalie Gingrich's group program she had a few years ago. And we were working on like this mission and vision values thing. And I'm like, you know, I want to work with clients behind, you know, and help them have success beyond the lens. I'm like, there's the name.
That's beautiful and very recognizable. I will also have the links in the description and everywhere else for everybody to be able to find you easier so they don't have to just listen back. Um,
Awesome.
yes. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was wonderful and such an important topic. Your story is very inspirational. Your willingness to share and be open about it is very much appreciated and 100% needed in this arena. For those of you out there facing your own adversity, know that you're not alone. That is the whole point of this series. You are not alone. We are all going through our things too. Even if we've been past some, there's always going to be something else that comes up. You are not alone in that journey. When you need an extra hand or mind for brainstorming during your mompreneur journey, we'd love to work with you through the Mom Elevated Society. You'll find monthly check-ins for goal setting and assessing, plus so much more for both your business and your mom life. So until next time, keep shooting for the stars.